Hi, I am your book coach, Catherine Mora, and I'm going to be talking about how to cure writer's block, because this is a pretty common one when people are writing a book or even writing anything else. They get a bit stuck and say, I can't think of what to write. So we are going to talk about where that comes from sometimes and how to get rid of it. So let us dive right in. If you've been looking at a blank page and you're feeling pretty stuck, and you think you've got writer's block, I want to look at where that potentially comes from. So have you started with an outline? I would say one of the number one reasons for getting writer's block in the first place is that someone is looking at a blank page because they have no outline. They're just going to wing it or fly by the seat of their pants, as they call it in the writing world as well. Well, I guess they call it that in lots of worlds. But starting with an outline is really important because you're never looking at a blank page then. Now, an outline, you might have a chapter outline, which is then broken down in the chapter with bullet points of what you're going to include in that chapter. And this is the same for novels, so for fiction, for non-fiction, so self-help, business books, even a memoir. All of your chapters can be planned out in advance with bullet points. And if you do this, you are much less likely to have writer's block in the first place because you're never sitting down to a blank page, because a blank page creates a lot of pressure. You must come up with something out of nothing. Whereas with an outline, you've got a bullet, you just start fleshing out bullets and you're done. You're off and writing, and you're not going to have writer's block in that situation almost ever. And an outline is also really important anyway because it helps you work out the structure of your book so that you make sure you remember you've included everything, you know where you're going, you can look from start to finish. If you just sort of wing it as you go, your book can ramble as we do as people, and you really can go off on tangents, you leave things out, you forget what you're doing, you forget what you included. An outline stops you from doing that. And an outline isn't set in stone. I've certainly got clients that I'm working with where we've got an outline and partway through they want to include something else, or they want to change something, or they want to move something, and that's fine. The outline isn't like absolutely must be stuck to, but at least it gives you that starting point. And if we're talking about writer's block, that's one way of avoiding it, and that's probably the main way of avoiding it in the first place. So that's number one. Number two is one of the other causes of writer's block is actually fear and perfectionism. So a lot of people, when they come to me because they want to write a book, will say, I want to write a book, but I'm worried that nobody will read it, or I'm worried that nobody will think it, they'll read it and they'll think it's no good, or who am I to write a book, or what will people think of me? I'm not an expert. I'm not ready to do it yet. I don't know my stuff. I haven't been around enough, long enough yet. And that sort of fear of judgment and that it has to be perfect and that you're not good enough is one of the other causes of writer's block, because you're blocking yourself from that sort of mindset space. And that's a much harder one to get around, because you need to get over some of the mindset issues before you can actually get into the practical part of, unblocking yourself from writing. So I want you to ask yourself, why are you writing this book? Who are you writing it for? Who's going to be reading it? Think of those people that you can help. I get really excited when I think about the ripple effect when I work with a client on their book, and then, that book obviously gets edited and all of that, that someone's going to read that book and potentially have their life change. They're going to be inspired. They're going to learn something new. And that is really, really inspiring, thinking about that ripple effect of the book continuing, that person recommending it to friends, all of that stuff. And if you are writing a book, don't put that pressure on yourself that it has to be amazing either, because, we all do a shitty first draft. We probably even do a shitty second draft, really. It's about getting it down, getting it written, getting to the end. So, I work with clients over a 16-week period, for example. Our focus is on getting them to the end of the first draft. Yes, we structure it. Yes, we plan it. Yes, we talk about strategy and how the book's going to help them grow their business. But the focus is just getting it written. You're not allowed to edit as you go, because then you get stuck and you never finish it. You have a perfect chapter 1, you have no chapter 20. And one of my mentors, when I was writing my first book, his thing was just don't get it right, get it written. So I want you to remember that when you're writing. Just write anything. I used to write every day for 15 minutes, whether I felt like it or not. That's how I smashed through the last 13 chapters of my book, when the first 8 had taken me like 20 months or something. And I did the last 13 chapters in 10 weeks, I think. it was because I just said, I'm going to write every day, whether I feel like it or not. Some days, you know, I wrote good stuff. Some days it was pretty crappy. And, you know, some days it flowed, some days it didn't. But I just made sure I sat there for that minimum of 15 minutes and just started writing. And that way you've actually got something on the page and you're propelling yourself towards that goal of finishing. When you go back and edit, you delete. I deleted whole chapters. Well, the editor deleted whole chapters. But you delete whole chapters, you rearrange, you pull out things, you put in things. That's all part of the process. Just get it written. Now, if we actually want to talk practical ways of getting rid of writer's block, the number one way from a practical perspective is get moving. So I've got some examples I wrote so I didn't forget. Things like, you know, just go for a little walk, get out into nature, do some exercise, put on some music and dance in the lounge room and sing. Do some housework. I know if I'm going to do housework, I'm pretty soon going to want to go back and write. Make yourself a snack, make a coffee, even get on the floor and cuddle your dog. I do that sometimes. You know, go out and do some gardening, sweep up leaves, pull up some weeds. You can play with your kids, do something like a bit of Tai Chi, yoga. I'm talking 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Do some stretching. Just get your blood flowing, you know, and that, because it's a change of scenery, you've moved out of your desk, you're like out of your chair and you're actually getting moving, that can really, really help. You know, you can even go and work from a cafe, because just having that change of scenery is really good. You know, you've got your sort of people around, you feel stimulated, your brain is in a different place. I know for me, I work from home. I love my office. I love being in here. I've actually just painted it pink. I don't know if anyone noticed, and I've got some new things. There's some other furniture coming. I'm really, really loving it, and I feel so good in this space. But if it is a bit isolating, I suppose, and I'm here on my own, apart from when I'm talking to clients on Zoom. So if you were in a similar position to me, you might feel a bit blocked because your brain just needs a bit of stimulation. So yeah, go and work from a cafe or, you know, the library or something like that. A lot of libraries now are pretty cool. So let's move on to the second sort of group of practical tips, and that's do something creative or mind stimulating. So, you know, you could draw or paint, you could do a jigsaw for a little bit. Don't go and do a whole jigsaw. If you're anything like my mum, she does a jigsaw for like 2 weeks, and then massive ones, you know, where she have no idea where anything goes. Play with Lego, because it's like, you know, that sort of hand-eye coordination. Read a book for a little while. I've got some clients when they're writing memoirs, they like to read other people's memoirs to sort of get into the, you know, groove. Listen to some music. A lot of people like classical for this kind of thing, because, you know, classical's got some certain things in it, I guess, which affect your brain differently to other types of music. You could do some stream of consciousness writing, you know, where that sort of free writing, where you just start with a topic and write whatever comes to your mind. You could go and do some meditation if you're into that. You could read the paper, read a magazine. And those are some of those sort of mind stimulating things which can really help, you know. The next area I want to talk about is taking a different approach. And that is, I think Ernest Hemingway did this, but I could be making that up, is leaving a sentence half written. So when you're doing a writing session, don't finish at the end of a chapter, start the next chapter and just half write a sentence, so that when you get back onto it, you're actually starting with half that sentence and you go, what was I going to write? Oh yeah, and you start writing. And that's one of the ways a lot of people swear by doing that. So give that a try and tell me if that works. You could also, if you've written an outline, there's no reason you couldn't write another chapter, because you don't have to do it chronologically. And I do have clients who write out of order, depending on, they already know what they're going to write, but today they say, you know what, today I really feel like writing about this such and such thing. And that way, instead of being really stuck on, oh, I must write chapter 3, you might jump into chapter 7. And that's perfectly fine, whatever gets you going. And as long as you're writing, that's really the most important thing. And the last part of this section, in terms of having that different approach, is establishing a routine. And as I mentioned before, writing for 15 minutes every day, 20 minutes, half an hour, small blocks of time, rather than saying, you know, on Sunday. One of the biggest causes of writer's block, you go, okay, on Sunday, I'm going to sit down for 3 hours every Sunday and write. you sit down on Sunday morning and you're tired or whatever. That's assuming your writing session didn't get cancelled because you got invited out to breakfast or you had to take the kids to sport. But you sit down and you've got this blank page in front of you and you have 3 hours in front of you to write. You're like, oh shit, I have to write for 3 hours. Okay, this is going to be good. It's my only writing session this week. Okay, I need to start writing. And then you have so much pressure on yourself. That pressure causes writer's block. With a routine of writing 15, 20 minutes every day, or 30, but even just 15 is fine, your brain starts switching on. Like when you do it every day, like any habit, going to the gym, whatever, your brain starts switching on, going, oh, it's writing time. And especially if you do it at the same time every day, it's like your brain knows that now is the time to write, and actually you will find it will start flowing faster. So I have some clients who have been resistant to trying this option, right, to be honest, because they've said, oh, it takes me half an hour just to get warmed up. Well, firstly, if you know anything about mindset, if you keep telling yourself it's going to take half an hour, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? It's going to take half an hour because you've convinced yourself of that. If you do this 15, 20 minutes every day, then your brain will switch on quicker because it knows that this is writing time. Stephen King, apparently, I mean, he obviously is a prolific writer. He's written a bazillion books and he's been doing it forever and it's his job, right? But he started from somewhere too. And he said he sits down at the same time every day. He has his routine. He has his coffee there and he used to work on a typewriter and I guess now he works on a computer or whatever. He has his things set the same way, as his chair in the same place, he has everything. Because he said that routine with everything in the same spot sets him up to just let the creativity flow. And it's sort of like if anyone has children, they say when you discipline children or have them in a routine, that it actually helps them thrive and flourish because they feel safe and secure in the routine enough to flourish. I'm not a child psychologist, clearly. And it's sort of like the same with lots of things, and writing is one of them. Having that routine allows your brain to get creative and to get into the swing of things. So that is another way of having that sort of different approach before you even get to the stage where you allow yourself to have writer's block. And some people will say that writer's block doesn't exist. I read one blog once where she said it was just laziness, that you just had to write. I think that's a bit harsh, to be honest. I think we don't always feel the same in every day. Even if you're writing every day for 15 minutes, you're going to have some days where what you write is really not very good, and other days where it's great, and I think it's just part of writing, and you just accept it and deal with it, in the edit. That's what the edit is for. I edited my first novel like at least a dozen times, maybe 15 times. I worked with two professional editors. I had 6 beta readers giving me feedback and edited it each time. I put it away for 6 months and came back and edited it numerous times, including with the professional editor. Like the first version looks nothing like the last version. So part of this whole writer's block thing is to give yourself permission to not be perfect, to give yourself permission for the draft to be shitty, So if you've got any questions for me, I would love you to drop them in the comments. I'm happy to answer them live, or I can answer them later. If you're starting a book and you're feeling a bit overwhelmed by the whole process, I do have a checklist. So if you drop in the comments that you want that, I will just send it to you via Messenger if you like, or email. So it's a 45-step checklist with everything from before you even start writing, through the writing process, editing, design, upload, and promotion. So basically the whole gamut of everything, bit of media and all that sort of thing. So the checklist covers everything. Happy to send you that. And what else have I written down here? Oh, I know what I wanted to cover. What doesn't work with writer's block? Let's cover a little bit of that. What doesn't work? Watching TV, Googling things, researching. You'll just go down a Google research rabbit hole and you'll never come back. Computer games, YouTube, anything on YouTube. I think you're getting a theme here. Basically, for the most part, screens are not so great because you want to really change up your situation, getting moving, having a change of scenery. Sitting there looking at the screen isn't at your desk is not going to help with your writer's block. The other thing that doesn't help with writer's block is waiting for inspiration and refusing to write until you feel inspired. Several author friends have said to me, if you do that, you'll never write your book, because hardly anyone ever feels inspired. You just have to take action. So that was another thing to cover. But yes, so do tell me below if you want the checklist, and send me a message with any questions. If you want to have a chat about your book idea, I am here for you. And yeah, I think that's really about it. I hope this has been helpful. And thank you everyone for connecting. I will jump into the comments and say hello to everyone for now. Thank you for watching. And I hope I see you and your book very soon. Okay, getting in here to some comments. Lovely. Okay, we're going to finish it there. Okay, thank you so much. Talk soon.